One of the most valuable things that we can do on our YouTube channel in our content is to share with you guys the stories, the examples of contracting company owners that have been there and done that have been in the game for a couple of decades. They've grown to a certain level and they open up their playbook so that you can learn and implement some of the things that they have learned along the way. And today's episode is exactly that. I am honored to welcome my friend Dan Young to the show. Dan is someone that you may or may not know from the roofing industry. He is the co-owner of Young Construction in Northern Iowa, Minnesota, and now Florida. He and his wife Tammy have owned the business for well over 20 years. They've experienced a lot of success, but not every year is a winning year. In fact, Dan dives in this episode and talks about how we need to be able to scale up but also be able to scale down. We need to be nimble as small businesses. I really appreciate Dan sharing with us and being vulnerable with us about some of the lessons that he's learned along the way, some of the failures they've experienced as a business, because this is the real talk. This is the talk that most people don't share. Everyone wants to share the wins and the highlight reels, but Dan shares it all in this episode. A few other things that we talk about in this episode: leadership, building your team, brand building. Dan is one of the most marketing-minded roofing company owners that I know, and that is one of the keys to their success over the past couple of decades. He gets into accounting and finances and all the things that we need to know as business owners. I've gotten to know Dan pretty well over the last 5 or 6 years from different roofing industry conferences and events. We've had the honor of working with Young Construction for several years, training a few of their in-house marketing people to be able to build and run their marketing machine. So no doubt you will get a lot out of this episode, whether you're just starting out, you've been in the game 10 years, or somewhere in between. Dan is going to, again, share how he has put the right pieces of the puzzle in the right place, in the right order, to be able to build a very reputable company in multiple markets. So I'm excited for you to dig into this one. Take some notes, hit pause if you need to, think about some of these concepts and really soak this in and take action on what my friend Dan Young shares in this episode with us. What's going on, Dan? How you doing today?
How you doing, my friend? I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Last summer, I was out there at that cool office that you have there, well-branded office with orange and black all over the place. So it's good to catch up.
Yeah, we opened another one. Well, we're opening another one. It's we just finished it. The outside of the building's completely done. It's identical to this one. It's in Albert Lee, nice location, right on a main strip. That's our next spot. That'll be number 3 for buildings. So
3 buildings, awesome.
3 buildings, yeah.
Looking forward to digging into a little bit of that. And I wanted to have you on, Dan. Obviously, we've developed a good friendship, a good working relationship over the past several years, probably 5 years or so. And you're one of the most branded and marketing-minded roofing company owners that I know. So, and you've got a great story, you've got a great heart, you've got a great mission, and I just wanted to get on and kind of give you the spotlight to share some of that. So for those people who don't know Dan Young, Young Construction, give us an overview.
Well, we're a company that's been in business for 22 years, 23 years actually, and that we've been branded as this company. And one of the things that was interesting for us is we started with retail, and those of you that do storm restoration, you know what I mean. It's I didn't know anything about the storm side, and I used to think about that, like, okay, am I missing out on something? And now, nowadays we're probably 80% storm restoration, 20% the other retail way. But during the last 22 years, one of the main things I figured out was that you got to build a brand, and I truly believe that will guide you through when things slow down, or maybe you don't. We don't chase outside our area. I have no desire to, maybe a couple of hours we'll go, but other than that, we like to stick around our area and utilize the name brand, use like branding. And it's one of the things that that I always found with Joseph when I first met him was, and I recommend you all the time. Very kind words, by the way, but I do that because I think that if you're going to spend money and you just had somebody was spending 10%, was it, of their revenue?
Yes, the post I made the other day, yes.
And I'm a big fan of spending a large percent. I am. I have no problem with that. But not when you're starting out and you can't afford it. And branding is going to take you time. Joseph talks about this all the time. To get where we're at with branding, you're not going to do this in a short amount of time. You got to look at this in a long stretch. It's like putting a radio ad out or whatever back in the day and thinking that, I'm going to get all these customers. It doesn't work that way. It takes a long time to brand. And
hey guys, real quick, I want to pop in here. If you're a roofing company owner doing over $3 million a year and you feel like your marketing is a gamble, you're trying to put all the pieces together and build a brand just like Dan Young, then tap the link below in the description to schedule a marketing clarity call with our team here at Contractor Dynamics. What we'll do on that quick marketing clarity call, we'll ask you a few questions about your business, about your marketing, some of your goals, and we'll help you lay out a plan to get from where you are now to where you want to be. Not overnight, because there is no magic to it like you're learning from Dan Young right now, but step by step, brick by brick, piece by piece, just like Dan Young has done to build the market leading company that he has built. So tap the link below in the description, reach out to us here, schedule a clarity call. We love to support you in your growth.
Nowadays we're looking at where do we brand? I'm personally, as an owner, as a leader, I'm looking out at how do I brand into the next generation for my kids and my family and those. And some of that we can get into later here, but some of it we're doing right now. We brand our local schools all over with pencil giveaways, water bottle giveaways. We bring our name and our brand into the school. That's your future customers for your kids. And people will say, well, I'm targeting the next generation of customers. Why wouldn't you? It's no different than McDonald's and a Happy Meal, right?
That was really cool. I saw that on social media the other day, and people that don't know you might be like, oh, you're just, trying to, get in the brains of kids. And that might be part of it. But I know that you and your family and Young Construction are very heavily involved in your communities and all year long. It's a part of what you guys do. So for anyone thinking that, hey, that's a cheap shot trying to, get brand to the kids, while they're still young, that's kind of a byproduct of it. You guys truly care about your communities and support them. So that was cool. You were given like pencils and backpacks, water bottles, notebooks, branded Young Construction, right?
Absolutely. And I'll even say, like nowadays, most of the kids, at least with my kids, they're in sports, or active in school. My twins are 15 and my daughter's 13. And with your kids and branding, yes, I mean, you could say that, I guess. I also look at the fact that most of the schools don't have everything they need. And there's a lot of kids in school that don't have the blessings that my kids do. And so some of the stuff that I try to make sure is I don't selective do anything. When you give away the backpacks with your name, they're just a vinyl cheap backpack. But the kids like that because most of them have notepads now and they shove everything in this little thing, throw it over their shoulder. Some kids, maybe they don't have, you think a pencil is no big deal, but some of the kids don't have, the same home life that maybe my children do. So some of our branding is geared towards water bottles, backpacks, pencils, stuff that they can use in the school. And I think that's what matters. And sure, you're gonna get your brand in there. Of course you are. They're gonna take it home. Their parents are gonna see it. It's a no-brainer. But we also sponsor the football, baseball, wrestling. This is what we donate our money to. When you talk about branding, I'm a big fan of supporting the community. And in that sense, yes, you're going to get branding out of that. Of course you are. Why wouldn't you? But at the same time, you can give back to the community, to your area. It's a win-win situation, both directions.
100%. Yeah, I love that, how involved you guys are in your communities. So you've thrown around this word branding and brand a couple dozen times already. What does that mean to you? And or, if you had a younger roofing company, contracting company owner just starting out,
like, Dan, like, what's this brand thing you talk about, and maybe not get into yet, like what they should do, but like define it. What does it mean to you?
There was a point, I think I was probably 10 years into this, and I thought, man, I need to blow this company up. I'm going to start doing storm chasing and blah, blah, blah. You know how we get sometimes. We want more. At least driven people do, right? Most of the people that I know that are successful, they're similar to me, where we don't know when to stop, and nor do I want to be honest with you. I love what I do. So, but when you're talking about branding, I often hear this, and I'm going to speak about this at one of the conferences. I often hear that, our industry is recession proof because of storm restoration, and it's just not true. And I wish more people would talk about this. Maybe I'll give you that you can get work if you want to drive 6 hours or fly to another state or see the next hurricane. Of course, that's a different system. But if you want to stick around home, if you have family and kids, and you want to be with them and have somewhat of a life, I think that, you talk about it often, 5 Mile Famous. I mean, you're going to create a circle and you're going to do your marketing, and it's going to take time to get your name out. And if you consistently do that on all the right platforms, it's not just one thing. A few years down the road, you'll see benefits of what we're talking about here. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast with Joseph. That's one of the things that we're both very passionate about. He's done it with his company. I remember when he was sitting in the first conferences and we met, and I think it was about a year or two into it, I walked up and I said, okay, we're going to do your thing. And he goes to explain it all. I says, no, I watched you. I paid attention to what you do. I'm good. Just whatever it is. Here's my in-house marketing. And that I will touch on that for Joseph here. We brought everything in-house, and I mean everything. Everything we do, I slowly brought in-house, meaning we do have some outside companies that handle our technical stuff and things like that, but we have in-house marketing 100%. I have a videographer that sets this stuff up. It's very, very, when you grow, as you're able to afford to do what I'm talking about, that's what I suggest. Nobody cares more about your brand than you. And I'll hand it back to you, but that's pretty much why we do what we do.
Yeah. So Dan, that's something that I am passionate about. We built a business around it, which is, training companies on how to do it themselves in-house, maybe not necessarily 100%, but a majority of it, because yes, there are technical aspects, things that you probably shouldn't do in-house. And we can touch on some of those. But what was that inflection point, or was it a pain point where you're like, man, I'm doing a lot of this marketing and we need to hire someone in-house to do some of this stuff? Like, what was that point?
I think I remember when I hit my first million, it was just me, and back then $1 million was quite a bit of money. It is now, and it was like hitting 5 million now, and I was so happy. But then I realized, I was still focused on building this brand that I wanted. And my wife used to be in radio, and so I think about 10 years ago, she came into the company, and we used to, before the internet and all this was huge like it is now, we would use radio and that type of newspaper and that type of marketing, which we still do. But I will say that, nowadays, most of it is right here, what we're doing today. And when you're trying to build that brand, when you're working towards that goal, it's the biggest thing is you're not going to be able to afford a lot of the things. And I get it. And I do want to point that out, because when I read that thing about, I thought it was a 10% that you brought up that somebody was spending, and I thought to myself, 10%, you could do quite a bit in-house. We do outside services. We do have outside services, because some stuff, your marketing person needs to be marketing your brand. You still are going to have to hire people that handle the technical side, the side that tells you how many hits you're getting on an ad, how many ads are the ads to be playing. There's another part to that, and those people, to be honest, I've changed that at least once a year sometimes. Because if it's not producing, then I'll make a change.
Well, yeah. And the only way that you're able to tell if it's not producing is by having an understanding of marketing and having someone in-house that does understand how to look at the reports and say, hey, this is not working. Like, we're not getting the return that we want. So the only way to understand that is to really like know some of it. And just to jump in there, to give you guys some context on Dan's mentioned this a couple times, I wrote a post on my social media the other day, and it was after, and I try to do this a lot because I try to like paint the picture and just kind of get people, I'm so focused on education, right? So I met with this roofing company owner. They're about a $1.5-2 million a year company, spending, like Dan said, over 10% on marketing, on Google ads and some radio station thing, and just not getting results, to the point where it's really like putting a squeeze on their business, on their financials, on their cash flow. They're just getting like a abysmal return. And so, yeah, like that's not, maybe it's not their fault. Maybe it's not the marketing agency's fault. It's just like this, they don't know what they don't know. So, they came across us, we had a conversation, and what ultimately we're going to help them with is like training their, basically the wife of the husband and wife business on how to do some of this themselves. And they're going to save a lot of money and ideally get better results because they are building that brand. So when Dan talks about like as a small company, yeah, it might be attractive to do Google ads and SEO and all these things that you might see young construction doing, but you got to be careful that, if you are putting that money out, then you know quickly, like, is it working? Is it not? Because that can bury you. And that could be tough. So be careful.
Yes. A good company will have in my opinion, eventually when you reach the point, we'll have a in-house marketing. For us, we were one of the first people to implement a videographer. I see that a lot more companies are doing that now. I was one of the first, in my opinion, that I seen the benefit of it. Those are two separate positions, in my opinion, by the way. I don't think you should hire a videographer to do your marketing, and I don't think you should hire a marketing person to do your videography. I truly believe that's critical. Now, when you get to that point, but let's touch on that guy, because I remember being that guy, that 1 to 2 million. When you're doing an ad and you're sitting down, don't just come up with an idea all the time and spend that money. Sit down with the people, the leaders in your company, and in a room and hammer out where you're going to go and what you're targeting. And Joseph will guide this a lot, but what am I going to spend? What's my ad spend on Google? What's my ad spend on newspaper? What's my ad spend? And I still do newspaper. I mean, there's people that still, most of it's online now, but you need to know where you're earmarking your money months before you spend that ad. And I still do that. Every year, we look at where we were and we project where we want to be, and we kind of have an idea. Now, just so you know, during that time, I'll come up with something that I think is kind of cool, and I'll throw a Pink Panther in the pool, or I'll give away beach towels to the pools. I did that this year. There's stuff that I'll do that I call my extras. And I do always put, if I'm spending a certain amount, I always have a certain amount tagged for, the kids, the school, some giveaway, something to give back to the community, which is huge. I truly believe if you give back as a company, you're going to get more shares and likes out of that than any of your ads. And sometimes that's going to be that's another one that I think don't get talked about a lot, Joseph. Sometimes we forget. If I do something with the Humane Society, as an example, and let's say I'm going to give them, donate some money for dog food, or like and share, and we will donate $100 to your favorite charity and whatnot. There's 6 different charities, and now I shared my information with the 6 different charities. Those charities and all the people that are connected with them now shared your information. So what you're really doing there when you do stuff like this is you're covering so much more ground on the internet and in social media, because you're basically using what your giveaway would have been anyway, and something that you care about, and you have other people that are doing it. And that's why you'll see a lot of ours like and share your favorite charity, and we will give them $100 towards what you care about. And you essentially, the $1,000 you spent went 5 times further in marketing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that, you do it because intrinsically, like, you guys like doing that. And then again, you're getting business as a byproduct of that. And a large part of that is, I believe, that the trust. It's like, all right, well, these guys are involved in the community. They care about animals. They care about veterans. They care about, whatever else is going on. There's just that like sense of trust. Like they're good people. I can trust them. I feel comfortable about them. And I'm sure you guys get that a lot, where it's like they're, similar how to you came to me after watching me for a year. You're like, I don't want to hear the pitch. I just, let's work together. I'm sure you guys get a lot from homeowners where they're like, yeah, just you do my roof, you're doing my project. Like I already chose you.
But and you do it yourself. So even when you're marketing your company now, there's two directions here. We'll do a finished Friday and we'll show a roof or siding, a house that we completed. That's direct marketing on what we do as a business. And then there's marketing on what you do in the community and the people that you touch and the things that you reach out to. Those are two different types. And when you start to see this as it is, because if you're not seeing this as I'm talking about it, it's going to affect you. No, not everybody wants to just see a picture of a roof or finished Friday. I mean, they want to see it. I mean, you can push that as your marketing, but to be perfectly honest, if you have somebody tracking your marketing, you know what they're watching? They're watching when the Pink Panther jumped in the pool. They're watching when you're giving pencils out to their kids' school. Now, when they see Finished Friday, they're correlating your name with what you do. And you start to see a bigger picture of what we're talking about. This takes time. And you're not going to do this overnight. But if you're consistent with this and consistently doing this, it's not in the beginning. You can do this really relatively inexpensive. Joseph can guide you in that. A lot of it is just getting away from being shy in front of the camera and talking to him as your friend. Joseph's my friend. And when you start to do that and share with people from your heart, the people that you're sharing with are going to start to understand. Do your marketing that way. Share. It's the same thing. People can smell phony. They can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When you're just, looking for the sale, when it's all about you as a sales rep or the owner, people can sniff that out. When you're truly like interested in helping people make smart decisions about their property or whatever it is that you do, they can feel that, especially on video where they can see your body language, tonality, like they can just see your eyes. There's so much that goes into that. That's why video is so powerful. So powerful. That's why we're doing this today.
I just seen one where it was a video of a guy, and I'll leave the company name. They came out screaming like, "We're the ones, and if you have a storm, we're gonna." How many of those I see when it happens? And the hurricane it didn't even hit yet, or if it did, I think it fizzled out yet. But it's interesting because you could have done much better, in my opinion, as soon as I saw it, to say, "Hey, we understand at this time that you guys got a lot more to think about than, a storm tearing your roof off. What we want to do is help you, fix your house and repair it. Give us a call." People are going to understand that passion a lot more than we're here for you. You're what you should be, which is fine. But what you should be is talking about protecting their family and home and the people they care about first, and then coming in and say, we're also here once the storm passes. Even in what we do, we have straight line winds. When we market that, we are very careful about, we hope everybody's okay. We care about you. When this is over, give us a call. We'll have emergency crews out trying to protect your home. And so people can tell the difference.
I think so many companies, and we work with, a decent amount of clients that do storm restoration, not chasing like all companies like yours that are focused on building that brand, of course. And there's, you just see in the industry, like you can see those companies that are like, all right, storm's coming, can't wait. We're waiting for a big one, like that's like, it's like profiteering off a storm. Like it's just such a turnoff. Like it's such a turnoff.
You got to have some kind of balance there, don't you, Joseph? You do.
Yeah.
I think that, yes, do we get excited when, there's potentially thousands of houses with a hailstorm? Sure. Because if nobody got hurt, I mean, that's, but that, you also have to put yourself in the shoes of, there's probably nowadays probably 10% that aren't even insured. I mean, and how many people that are going to get screwed over by their insurance company or not paid out. There's so much more to it that if it's not your house, unless you've been in that situation, it's just a whole different ball game. And surrounding yourself, and I was going to talk about this with you, surrounding yourself as much as possible with like-minded people. And it's something that I see that you've really stepped up in your company. You got people that have been with you a long time. I have people that have been with me for years and years. Sometimes employees, they come and go, but when you're doing this marketing, and I'm gonna bring this up because it's really important. Certain positions, almost every position in your company, should have a backup. And the reason is that tomorrow somebody could quit or get hit by a bus, they always say, or whatever. Marketing and different parts of your company, just have somebody that knows how to do that position. So if something ever happens, you have the ability to hold on so you're not rushed to just replace them. And because I don't think any position in your company should be just, I'm hiring a guy or a gal. I think that key person should be training somebody to do it when they're sick or whatever, but mainly to keep your machine going. If you're running a legitimate company in a company that can run, I can leave right now and I can go somewhere and do what I want without worrying about my company. I don't have to be in the mix like I used to. That's taken years, by the way. And with people like me and Joseph, it's hard for people like us to let go. It is. And I don't know, I heard you talk about that one day and I thought, God, that's so much me. But you have to let people do it their way because that's their way. Just because you think you have a better way doesn't always mean that you're right. As a leader, you are probably not. And so when you start to do that, then your company can run without you and you can go on a vacation. You can go enjoy your time. That said, I still probably keep my phone on me, but it's hard to let go, isn't it? It is.
It is, but yeah, it's going to be a whole other episode. But, when you hire by core values and you have that common vision and you have role clarity and you have good communication in your organization, then when you have those right people, then you realize that if you're not letting go, then you're actually holding them back from growing because they're not going to be learning how to lead or learning new skill sets and learning how to solve problems. And that's why you see so many companies that are so owner dependent is because they don't let go. And, whether it's they don't have the right people or whatever it might be, ego, just, they don't believe they can, but their companies are never able to grow beyond their own personal ceiling of hustle.
That's so true. I have so many people. My production coordinator worked for me for 5 years. This year, I think she'll hit 2 million in sales. I thought, well, it was a hard position to replace, by the way, just so you know. But they're the same values that we have. Most of the people that Joseph has met in my company, Angelica actually is transitioning into business development now. And it's a new position that we created. I felt that it's time to create that position. And when you ask me what the job description is, to be honest, we're still working on it. But I know what my idea is with it, and I know where I want to go with it. I want to develop business prior to a storm, prior to them needing the service. And so to be able to do that, I can't kind of do it. I have to create this position to do that. Otherwise, you have a sales guy that's trying to do something that's really not their job. And so
yep,
it's with this new position, me and Angelica and my wife and the key people in our company sat down and we're coming up with the job description and what they're going to do. I bought a new vehicle for this. It's the growth. We're kind of doing almost a franchise system with ours now where all our locations are same colors, same building, it's a repeat process because it's working. And with this position, I talked to a couple friends in bigger companies that have similar positions. And one of the things that came up is this is a position that could take a year or two to put in implement. If I was going to invest in anybody to do this, it would be her in this position because she's one of the people, just like everybody here, but she's one of the people that I feel that will take it to the next level. And if I don't do this with the people that work for us, the people that are part of us, they'll go somewhere else. Most people that are driven, they have to keep being driven. And if you don't allow them a path to where they need to be, they're going to go their own way. And it's nothing personal. I had a marketing girl that went on to other things. Kativa, great person. But
Yeah.
I'm happy because when they came to us, they were in a position that they didn't like, and they had no growth. Those type of people are like me. Was I happy? I'm never happy to lose somebody good, but I would rather see that, because every time I see them now, they're like, "Hey, thank you so much. I'm doing everything I wanted to do now," and that's
No, that's cool. I saw you tagged her in something the other day. Like, that's really cool to have that. And Angelica sounds, perfect role for her. I know she's done a few different roles in your company, and she's very smart. She's almost an extension of you, I would say. So that's cool. We're actually about to start hiring for that position as well. And I could share our job description and roles and things like that with you if you want.
Put on paper, because we just start. Everybody's like, "What's this position?" I said, "Oh, I know. I actually know what the position is. I do. I have I just want to make sure that you have. I believe with any job, we'll talk about that real quick. I believe any job in your company shouldn't be a position that you make stuff up and that you think is this or that. It should be written on a piece of paper.
Oh yeah,
and it should be spelled out. And just so you know, things can change on that piece of paper. And when you're given this job description to somebody, you need to be clear that this job description is changeable, because sometimes people get pigeonholed, and sometimes they want to be pigeonholed, and I don't allow that. I think that if you're going to work in a company for growth, that you have to be open to change. And sometimes it's just, at least with us as a company, and even Nick today, I had to call him to come pick me up at a place where I was dropping a car off. He just did. That's just part. He didn't complain. That's not my job. That's not my job is the worst thing that's ever been said in a company, almost, in my opinion. Because
and when you have that common vision, and you bring that clear vision, you bring someone on for a set. Hey, here's the roles and responsibilities. Here's what this role looks like. Either you or that person can at some point say, "Hey, Dan, what I'm doing right now is not really like consistent with like the vision that you have. I think I can do these things over here to better, support us." Like that's awesome too. That's great leadership. So,
oh, absolutely. And sometimes, and I've started doing this more the last couple of years, where I used to be real quick to answer, and I'm trying harder not to be quick to answer on things. I'm trying harder. If a customer calls in to complain, it happens, believe it or not, even if you have a good name. If a problem comes up, as a driven person, sometimes I make the mistake of responding real quickly, or too quickly, or having this. I've found that if I take a day and I say, you know what, I got to calm down here, I got to think about this, my answer the next day is entirely different than what would have been if I had responded. There's certain times where it's better not to even call the other person or speak to them about it. Say, hey, I'm going to deal with this in the morning or the next day. And that 24-hour lapse, especially on important things, if you're upset especially, give it a little bit of time, so you're not making a rash decision in your company. Some of those rash decisions will come back to haunt you later, because, if you're like me, I'm passionate. Sometimes, we tend to say something or do something that we wouldn't have the next day.
Yeah, especially as owners, we're emotional, and I've seen that. Like, our team members are able to handle things and solve issues that in a much more just like level-headed way. Not that I'm not level-headed, but just as an owner, I'm just emotional, and I get that. Dan, 22 years in, 23 years in, amazing stuff. Awesome brand. And I know you're very involved in the industry. You go to a lot of conferences. You're always looking to learn. You talk about that a lot. Like, you're always looking to learn. Where do you see, a lot of like contractors, business owners kind of get stuck or get in their own way? Do you see some patterns there, some common elements there?
I think you have to decide what type of company you're going to be. If you're going to be a self-employed company, that's an entirely different set. When I first started, that's what I was. I was self-employed and I had a few employees. If you're going to build a company, you need to build a company with systems, and the systems have to be in place enough to where you eventually are not doing all the stuff you think you have to do, because that's what we do. We tend to say, oh, I got to do that. The only thing I kept in-house entirely so far has probably been finances, and I usually do that even with an accountant, but just because that's just about it. But most everything now is somebody in the system. And then I also, because I always hear we're recession proof, I think, at least from my point of view, that I would never just rely on young construction to provide my retirement, my income for my family, and my completely everything for myself. And I urge this for everybody. We have, with us, we have medical, retirement, all that. But even though the people that work for me, I'm always preaching, hey, what are you doing for your future, for your kids' future, for generational wealth? What are you doing? Are you doing anything? Is it just you think that your construction company's just, that's it? Because it's not. And so I'm a big fan of investing in other areas, whatever that might be for you. Mine happened to be real estate, and I've done that for 20 years. So I did start another company. I'm building homes, twin homes, custom homes, and I formed that company under another LLC. If Young Construction does a job for them, I have to write them a check. So it's another entity, and you have to really know the separation. I think it's important if you're going to do that. But what I'm trying to say with this is, as you're building your company, the old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If I could give anything to a younger version of myself, that's what I give to you. Be smart enough to know that you could be making good money that year, but the next year you might not make as much. And knowing where to direct the excess money to for retirement and for things in the future. I love passive income. It's my favorite income. So it's I guess that's the one thing I would point out to somebody in this is, from the day you start till the day you decide to sell or give it to your kids or your family, I think it's critical that you invest in other baskets.
Right on. That's very wise. Yeah. Listen up, everyone, for sure, including myself. So, and you mentioned that, you kind of alluded to that. You might have a great year this year. Don't be tempted to go out and buy that big truck, buy the boat, buy the house, basically thinking like, hey, every year is going to be like this year. And we're going to grow by 50% every year. And I'm going to be making this much money. And there are ups and downs, right?
Some of the best lessons I've ever learned were some of the bigger companies. I'm friends with I'll leave him nameless, but I'm friends with a guy that he has a huge, he's so part of it. But one of the biggest lessons I got from him was scaling up and scaling down. And nobody wants to look at scaling down. Let's say we're at 20 million this year. We don't want to look at going back down to 10, right? You're never going to do that. Never going to happen. But the issue is, in my opinion, you have to be able to do that. And if you want to, unless you want to chase all over the United States, or there's different, I won't 100%. If you don't agree with it, great. I understand. But I have found that if you go to a certain amount, say 20 million, we'll use that as any number. And then you were going to go back down. This works for 1 million to 5 million. And let's say you hit 5 million, you want to go down to then you find next year you're going to go down to 3 million. Both are very important. It's almost more important, in my opinion, to be able to scale down than it is to scale up. Because what I mean by that is that, did you take on so much more debt, so much more expenses, so much more people that you're unwilling or unable to scale back down to the lower number? You should always keep that in mind. It's the biggest mistake I see. I see companies that they'll go to a conference. I've done this for a long time. I've been going for many, many years. And 1 year they're at $60 million. 2 years later, I don't see them. They scale down, way down. So it's what I'm trying to say is that keep your expenses in line with where you're able to. Let's say Colorado, prime example, 6 years or 5 years, they had no storms. This year they're, oh, look at us. But during that 5 years, you know how many companies didn't make it?
Mm-hmm.
And the companies that did, just so you know, one of my friends is there, they knew how to scale down. They scaled down and they waited it out. And I think that it's critical that you learn how to do that in this industry. It really is.
That's such a great point. And a part of that is knowing your numbers. It's huge. So knowing your fixed costs, your debt, your overhead expenses, your labor, like knowing all those numbers. If you do need to go down from 5 to 1 or 10 to 3 or whatever that might be, or even 10 to 7, then you can still run your business. You can still maintain that profitability. Your family is not impacted, things like that.
Well, and you and I both know in this industry, it's the one thing that nobody talks about. They all talk about, when I hear people talk, they all talk about, I sold 60 million, I sold 20 million, 50 million. Oh, look at me. You want to help people out? Start telling them the truth. The truth is that not every year is good. The truth is that sometimes you're going to have to cut expenses. You want to keep a legitimate company going for 22 years. I can tell you right now, you better learn to scale down once in a while. It's going to happen. Maybe I'm not that guy. I mean, I suppose there's somebody out there right now that's going to say, well, I just did 80 million. I'm going to do 100 million next year. Okay, then you're different than me. But from somebody that's done this a long time and I'm trying to help somebody that's new, I want them to be aware of this part because I had it happen. I had it happen at 5 million. Where we had a huge storm come through. I remember years ago, and we went from 5 to a higher number, and the revenue wasn't coming in because it was storm related, and so I was carrying more than I ever had to carry. And I tell you this because it's what happened to me. It's the hard lesson I learned, and so I positioned myself to where I know there's certain amounts of money that I won't do. There's certain numbers I won't sell no more because I'm not able to scale to that point and keep the quality and the percentages of profit that I want. It sounds really good to say I'm going to do 50 million because it's available, but then you go sell 50 million and then the work's crap. People start failing on their jobs. Your structure wasn't built to handle 50 million. It was only built to handle 30. You need to know these differences. And then the reason I bring it up is because I've seen so many people lose everything because they didn't have the ability to carry the money, the expenses, and do the jobs at the profitability. And if you ask me, the other one, do less money and more profit. That's huge. Why you want to sell some big job and I could have done 2 jobs that are smaller and I made more money on those 2 small jobs than you did on your 1,000 square. I would have made more on 2. It's know your number, stick to your number, and then just refuse to be a slave to the trying to sell more.
Yeah, refuse to be, for sure. The people don't talk about that. You're right. Growth is expensive. Like we're in growth mode right now, and we are a little bit overstaffed right now because we like to hire in advance, which is normal. But it's our profits not, it's still good, but like it's lower because we're over invested in people right now. So yeah, just being aware of that.
That's a good thing though, because you just touched on one of the hardest ones to scale back on. Say, because you care about people. Sometimes you have a system and you hire people that you're passionate about. And then if you don't have the revenue to keep those people, you have to know at that moment, this is the hardest thing too, because you're personally attached. You have to know that I'm going to have to scale back and sit down and take a hard look at what you got to scale back on until you're back up. And being honest and open about it is much better than the alternative. And then everybody in the whole company suffers. It is. It's a balance. And this is the truth. That's why I wanted to do this podcast, because I feel that sometimes in our what we're doing and passionate people like you, and I feel that I'm a passionate person on what I do, that some of the people that are the gurus in our industry are not sharing the negatives. when do we, as an industry, we want our industry to be better? Let's start sharing the truth about good and bad and a balance, and knowing, hey, I'm 22 years in. I can tell you I almost failed a few times. It's going to happen. And those are the times where some of what we're talking about today, we could help you. I can tell you right now, Joseph Hughes is probably the best money you will ever spend on marketing. And I say that not to necessarily just say pat him on it, but I say it because bringing it into your company, there's nobody that cares more about your money than you. And so when you hire outside your company, it's in my opinion, is you have to, but if you're involved with it yourself, nobody cares about your success more than you. It's just the way it is.
Appreciate that, Dan. Yeah. I mean, we have marketing consultants that we work with, and we speak with them multiple times every week. Like, we are actively working with them. And that's a key aspect of that. But yeah, like, you're so right with that fact that we're always, especially on social media, right? It's the highlight reel. It's, everyone's talking about the new truck and growing and all that. And I still, I get messages sometimes. Like, I most days I send out like happy birthday text messages and DMs, because, Facebook shows you whose birthday it is, right? So I'll send a few. And I got one today, and I get these, kind of regularly. This guy reached out to, he's like, hey, looks like you're killing it. Looks like you're crushing it. Looks like you're growing. I see you growing. Like, and that's great. I do appreciate that. But I also, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, that's like the social media end of it. And yeah, we're doing well, but there's challenges every day. Like, I have the same challenges as everyone has, So I think I can do a better job at sharing some of those. Like, yeah, it might look like we're growing, and we are, but like, there's a whole lot that goes on beneath the surface. It's like that analogy of the duck. You see a duck in a pond, just kind of like gliding along, nice and peaceful, but under the water, it's freaking paddling like crazy to make it, to make it go that way. So I think we can all do a better job at, sharing some of that.
I think, like, you're talking about that, but the thing is that when I go to the conferences, and I love going, because I get to meet my friends, hang out with them, go to dinner. Me and Joseph will go to dinner. I know a lot of people in the industry. Some of my best friends, I go to baseball games, football games. We hang out. So when winter comes for me in Iowa, it slows down, Iowa, Minnesota. And so I'm able to do more, but you got to understand, and I just keep thinking, what can I give back to the industry at this point, to the people that are starting out, and the ones that are from, let's say, from 0 to 5 million, 5 million to 10 million. Those people, the biggest thing you can give to them is to share how you got out of a situation, rather than, hey, yeah, I just sold another 10 million. They don't. Maybe they need help with what they're doing with their marketing, what they're doing with their finances, their numbers, figuring out your profitability on a job. One of my favorite ones I had learned in the very, very early, what does it cost to put the key in the door and open it? And really, truly do that twice a year. I'm actually due. So I'm going to be hard on myself and do it again. So I try to do this twice a year. I don't mean like your sales. I mean, what does it cost if you made no money that month to put the key in the door and open it? And knowing that number, and then divide that by 12, and that's your year. That's what you got to generate before you have a penny. Those numbers are critical. You got to know those, because when you say somebody was spending 10%, it's interesting to me, because the first thing I thought was, do they know? Did they know they were spending 10%? And if they did, are they sure it wasn't 20%? Because for me, when I put the key in the door every now and then, once every 6 months, what is my expenses? And what I mean, like your truck, your building, how much does it cost? Your insurance, your work comp, all that per month, where I have the essentials that you have to have for that company. So if you're doing 5 million, what is it? And that's going to tell you real quickly what you need to generate to even break even. It's sometimes we forget those numbers. We just keep going this direction. So now if I wanted to scale anyway, how am I going to scale when I don't even know what I need to put the key in the door?
Yeah. I love that.
It's really interesting, because And sometimes when you do it, you're like, what it does for me is it tells me that, hey, I'm going to pay off these 2 trucks next year and that trailer. And so I can buy a new vehicle and keep my number at a certain level where I'm not opening the door and spending the same amount. So I have a rule about that too, to where if you're getting equipment or buying trucks, or as if you're like us when growth, before you buy the new one, trying to take care of the other ones, so your opening the door cost is relatively where you need it to be.
I like that. Yeah, and those expenses, they creep up, because it's like, oh, this thing's $1,000 a month. This thing's $3,000 a month. I want to hire this consultant. It's a couple grand a month, and it does add up. So yeah, you mentioned that company again spending 10%. I have a feeling they didn't know the monthly number until we went through it in our Zoom meeting, and I added it up, and I said, hey, you're spending $13,000 a month that you told me about. There might be more, like you said.
And I bet you're right. And I bet if they see this video, and I mean it because I care, I bet if they see this video and they go into their books and take a deeper look, that the number's higher. And it's good to know that. It's depressing when you first know it. Yes. But if you don't know it, then you're not helping yourself. The biggest thing to help yourself is that feeling you get with, oh my God, it's costing me $100,000 to open my door a month. And you'd be surprised how quickly that number escalates. Interestingly enough, how quickly you can adjust that number. There's a lot of expenses you can quickly change. I've literally went through there before and said, we don't really need to do this, and this. And there's $1,000 a month. And I think that if that $10,000 a month right there is a good start at having another solid employee or whatever, it's where your revenue is going, is critical. During COVID is a prime example. I ended up buying, right before COVID, 6 new trucks, and then COVID hit. And I said to everybody, I said, you know what? We're gonna make do through this COVID thing, and we'll get some trucks when it goes over. So I waited a year. And now I don't know if it changed much though, still out there. But it's knowing your number on what's going out, your expenses.
Yeah. We've talked about a few big pillars, Dan, just to kind of like zoom out a little bit on this discussion. Marketing, we've talked about leadership, and we're talking about the finances. We talk about that a lot internally at Contractor Dynamics. Like those are 3 big pillars of every business. Of course, yeah, there's more, sales, operations, but those 3 things are things that I think a lot of roofing and contracting companies, our audience, does not focus on: marketing, leadership in your systems and structure, and your numbers. And I think if we intentionally focus on those things on a consistent basis, then we build stronger companies like L Construction has here. So it seems like you've done a good job at that.
I'm blessed with a lot of good people. I really am. And I'll even go further. It doesn't mean everything's perfect all the time. I still mess up, and, I still overreact, as I guess is, just part of everybody, in running a company. We have people come and go. Sometimes they leave bad, sometimes we leave good. It's running a business. And I think that one of the things I decided to do the last couple of years is be a little more blunt about the truth of it. I feel that there's so much sugarcoating sometimes in our industry of the next guru or the next thing. And I think we need more real authenticity and real, in that area of what's good and what's bad in a company. That not everything is always good, not everything's always bad, but I learn more from the mistakes that I make, especially the financial ones, than I've ever learned from any of the good ones. You will always learn more from that than anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What is it, Dan, that I know you're 23 years in, so this might not apply to everyone, especially if you're just starting out, what you're doing on a daily basis in your business, on your business, that sort of thing. But I think a lot of business owners have this, and myself included, you start out your business, you want some level of freedom, you want control, you want to be able to step away, go on vacations, not work 100 hours a week, that sort of thing. And, but I think that so many owners kind of stay stuck in their business because that's their identity. And, a lot of entrepreneurs are addicted to the chaos and will create problems just so they can solve problems. And I'm not excluding myself. Like, I'm guilty of all this as well. So I think a lot of our audience, has some desire to like get, work more on the business and not so much in the business. Can you paint a picture for us of what you do like on a weekly basis? Like, what are your roles in Young Construction right now?
I never know. I've always had stuff on the side going on at all times. It's just part of my make. But when I started realizing that I was building a good team and that the people that work with us, when things were not everything comes to me anymore, I have some really solid people that I find out something happened later and they solved it. I think that was, when a person takes on a promotion or a job that you gave them, and then you start seeing things that are taken care of. There's a lot of stuff that happens here now that I have I don't even know happened. And I know that sounds, but that's when I felt that I was growing as a company. And you look at that bigger picture of that person taking on the job. That's what I want. I don't want to be a babysitter for people. I want people to, and those are the people that you should promote from within, in my opinion, of the people that have that desire. I don't have to do everything anymore. And there's stuff now with the technology, like supplementing. I don't do supplementing. I couldn't do it if I wanted to. We do that in-house. And I just, there's certain aspects of certain jobs that when I started out, it was a tape measure. We were still measuring roofs. Now everything's, done with satellites. And I think that you have to be willing. However, I will add this: be willing to adopt every new technology that helps you business grow. And if I was going to conferences, if I was new coming into conferences, I used to try to write everything down. I try to absorb all this stuff because it's my make. And I completely changed that years ago. I started to take nuggets, and I talk about this once in a while. I'll take 10 nuggets, 5 that are going to be long-term to implement. And then I always try to get 4 to 5 nuggets that are stuff that I can implement immediately to see if it'll help my company grow. And I'm big on those ones. So when I'm listening to somebody speak, I'm not writing everything down. I'm doing bullet points. And if I hear somebody that comes up with something that's better than I'm doing or sounds pretty decent, you got to be willing to understand that might be the one. So I'll start it and I'll go, hey, that's a really good idea. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that ad. I'm going to try that in my software or my computer or whatever. I'm going to have somebody do that because it might be a good idea for growth.
Yeah, that's huge. The conference strategy, I think, like as entrepreneurs or maybe just people in general, we get excited about new information and new ideas and meeting new people. And it can be overwhelming. And then you get home from the conference and you don't implement any of it. Been there, done that. So I think it's important to go into an event understanding like, all right, here are some things that I'm looking to learn. Maybe here's some people that I'm looking to intentionally build a relationship with or ask a question. Here are the areas where I'm struggling, where I want to find out more information. Here's like a couple pieces of software that I don't like in our business. I'm going to look for alternatives. So go in with a plan and then come back on the outside or on the backside of that, implementing some of those things like Dan talks about.
I've seen people talk about going to a conference and not getting anything out of it. And it just drives me crazy because one of the first things I'm going to ask you if you tell me that is, who did you go talk to?
Yeah.
Who did you go speak to? Did you break out of your shell? Because the best things I ever got at a conference has been friendship. Some of the best friends I've ever had. And some of the best advice I've ever gotten from people has been at a conference. You go to a conference, you're spending the money. That doesn't mean that you got to write down every single thing that you're never going to look at in a folder anyway, half the time. but you write down a key item, a couple of key ones as you're going through the event. But the biggest one, break out of that little shell if you have one. If you're like me, you probably don't. And go up to people and say, "Hey, what are you doing tonight? You want to go out to dinner?" Hey, you'll see me do this all the time, and I'm live because I love that. I like that interaction and those people. Some of those people you meet will be the ones where right now I got a couple people that I could call right now if shit hit the fan, if I was having a major bad day, and they're the ones that are going to be there because we made a connection. And those are some of the best things. I used to go to them and people say, "Well, what'd you bring back from the conference?" I said, "Well, I'm here. I came back with it." I do try to get at least 3 to 5 ideas that I can implement that would either save money or generate money, one of those two.
Awesome. Yeah. And for you, those of you listening or watching, and you see Dan at a conference and maybe you want to learn more about him and his journey, the way to his heart is by asking him out for a steak, because Dan always loves a good steak. So
you do go out to eat almost every time we see each other.
Yeah, it's usually a good steak. So including the place that you took me to in Iowa there, the Northwestern.
Oh, yeah. Northwestern. Yeah. One of the best. Yeah. I usually, and that's one of my favorites here. I take my kid there a lot.
I see that. Small. Yeah. That tender, filet mignon.
It's funny because I think some of the best parts about conferences that I've ever had are probably during those dinners with people and interacting. Even my marketing and some of the girls that have done my marketing, some of the guys that have done my marketing are still friends with Joseph's people because they connected when they started with Joseph. And, it's, if I have a issue with marketing or whatever, I'm going to call. It's the same. You build that relationship. It's not just about the money. Those are the ones that will save you in the long run. People that actually are doing what you're trying to do. Absolutely.
I agree 100%, Dan. I want to kind of start to land this plane a little bit, but we can't have this conversation without talking about family. I know family is a big part of of your world and mine as well. Family business. You guys are always traveling. It looks like, I believe you do like your one-on-one trips with your kids as well. So yeah, just, talk about the importance of your family and how I think you're very intentional about the time that you invest with your family.
It's interesting because I've seen you start to do it now. I've seen you take direct action to make sure that's happening. And I was really happy when I seen that post because I can tell when you did it that time you really said, "You know what, I'm going on vacation with my family." And some people do it different. So we do a family. We do 2 family ones always every year, 2 bigger ones. And then usually one's in Disney or something or we'll do a trip with the family. But I do one that I started years ago. I intentionally take each child on their own vacation. They get to pick where they want to go, not me. Because I think that the age they're at, they're 13 and the 15-year-olds, and they pick some pretty crazy places sometimes. But one of the reasons I started that years ago is that I feel that you'll never, ever know your kid better when it's one-on-one, alone, without both parents. So it's just you and the child. And my wife is usually with the other 2, or she'll spend time with them. I've never got to know my kids better than that. They'll open up, they tell you everything. And it just is a really good time, a really good bonding time. And it's funny, they'll never remember what you get them for Christmas, but they remember that time where you were on that trip together and that you had a dinner together at a place or whatever, and you went to the beach, and they remember time. They remember the experiences. Most kids don't remember what they got the Christmas before. It's really interesting. And you start doing that and you get to know your child. I'm very blessed. My kids are, I'm a very blessed guy. But one of the things I think is, and it doesn't have to be some Mexico trip or something. It can be something, even though that's where my kids pick. But that's probably one of the best things I've done in family is one-on-one.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And Dan, you've definitely inspired me to do more of that with my kids. And that's one of my primary, I would say my biggest personal goal for this year, 2023, is to be more intentional with the time that I spend with those, in my circle, family, certainly included. So yeah, one-on-one time is awesome. You only have so many years with them until they're out on their own. So our kids are 8 and 11, and it's like, man, we only have a few more summers left until they're kind of out on their own. So I want to maximize that.
And they look forward to like this the year before. Like they're already looking forward. They're telling me, "Oh, hey, what if we went here?" And I'm like, "It's up to you." It's usually 4 or 5 days, and there's no other kid there. It's just me and the one. So that's 3 trips. I get to go on 3, which is a bonus for me. But that's the perfect age, by the way. Just so you know, they'll never forget that. When the other the other children, or the other parent is not there, it just changes the entire experience. That's just me, maybe. And if you're not able to, you don't have to go to some special play. It just seems something I came up with that works for me.
Yeah, you don't have to get on a plane and go anywhere. It can be going to breakfast or going to the park or beach or hike or whatever. This past weekend, I was with my son. Like, he had a soccer tournament, and it was just he and I the whole weekend, and that was great. Like, good one-on-one time. We're driving all over New Jersey, so hours and hours in the car, and just great time. So
I love that part because sometimes it's just a football game. We'll go to a football game, baseball game. It's a one-on-one. We'll go pick one of our favorite teams, and that's what we do.
Absolutely. Awesome. Dan, anything, this has been great. I mean, we can go on for hours, of course. Thanks so much for sharing your experience and your insights and your wisdom and your passion. Anything else you want to make sure you touch on before we wrap up?
I'm good. I just, if you're out there, I'm going to be out at a couple of the conferences. One of them I'm speaking at. If you ever want, just come up, hang out. We'll go. I'm willing to share anything because I think that there needs to be more of that with no hidden agenda. One of the biggest things in our industry is, everybody has an idea for, $1,000 I get. Look, you ever need to ask a question, it's free. Just give me a call. Just come up and talk to me. If you're at the events, just go up to Joseph, say, "Hey, how you doing?" 90% of this industry needs to reach out to each other more for no cost. And then, then you decide who you hire from that point.
Absolutely. What conference is that you're speaking at, Dan?
Roofing Process, Dimitri's.
Awesome. That's coming up in Orlando in December.
And then I'm going to the Northwest one, and I'm doing the IRE. I don't know yet. Maybe a few others.
Nice. Yeah, we'll be at the Roofing Process conference for sure. And I remember that conference last year in Orlando. I remember seeing you in the hallway talking with a bunch of people, younger business owners. Just, like Dan really lives it. So feel free to reach out to Dan. Check out Young Construction of Northern Iowa online. Check out Dan Young on, I think Facebook is probably your most active social media profile there. Okay, cool.
And you can reach me on Messenger if you don't have me. Just go to our Facebook. You can find me.
Awesome.
I get a lot of messages. Most of mine come through. We're very active in social.
Awesome. All right, Dan. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it. This has been a couple years in the making in terms of getting us on here to have this conversation. So thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you at the upcoming events.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you do, man.
Man, was that good or what? Dan is such a passionate, generous, giving, loving human being, loves his business, loves his family, and just a really good, shining example of good people who are doing good things and winning and creating that positive impact. So feel free to reach out to Dan, find him at youngconstructionofnortherniowa.com on their website, or find him on social media, connect with him there. I'm sure he'd be open to having a conversation with you if you'd like. And finally, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to ensure that you get interviews like this delivered to your inbox on a regular basis. We do our best to bring you a variety of leaders, from the roofing space so that you can learn and level up continuously. That's it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.